President and CEO of the Advertising Research Foundation. Absolutely thrilled to greet everyone on the webcast this morning. It's a little later in New York City, but we're out here in beautiful Las Vegas with 175,000 attendees of CES. And we're really excited. The ARF is interviewing senior executives once again, but we really wanted to bring some special programming to you live from Television City. It's our great pleasure to have David Poltrack, Chris, Rory, and Jeff Rossi here to give presentations, and Dr. Augustin Fu is going to be giving some lovely introductions of why this content is important and what we're really all about in just a minute. He's our Chief Marketing Science Officer at the ARF. But what I really want to do is just share with all of you why CES is important and why measurement and the future is so important to the ARF. The consumer is consuming media in different ways than ever before, and we see ourselves at the intersection of a whole digital transformation, marketing, and technology. And we see roles changing. We see cheese being moved. We see lots of opportunity, and I think we're all scrambling to make sure that we meet the most important thought leaders and we understand what the best solutions are, and that helps make us smarter, faster, and that's the role of the ARF. So we're doing our own original research, much of which you'll see at Rethink 2016. But what's even more important to me is to bring to you thought leaders like we have this morning. It's my great pleasure to introduce David Poltrack, who's the chair of the ARF Board of Directors. David is, of course, the Chief Research Officer at CBS. He's been at CBS for 46 years, which is really impressive. And he just said in his interview, if you're old enough, people listen to you, and that's a really great thing. But I think we listen to him because he is a provocative thought leader, and he's still just as excited about doing research as I imagine he was when he started his career. Importantly, he also established a credibility within CBS to be able to set up this remarkable CBS vision, interactive research experimentation kind of think tank studio, where they're able to interview, I imagine hundreds of thousands of consumers every year and really get real-time research conducted. So that's what makes this event so exciting. In addition to being the chair of the ARF, David has received numerous accolades from the Broadcast Television Hall of Fame. He received an award 2 years ago. He has been the past chair of the Media Research Council, and he received their award for their 50th anniversary. He, of course, is a recipient of the Aaron Efron Award through the ARF, which was a great honor to offer him. And he was inducted into the MRC Hall of Fame, the Market Research Council Hall of Fame in 2009. He's also an adjunct professor at NYU and Columbia in his free time. And he was in Vegas, like, who does research in Vegas? But he just said, I had the best time the last 3 weeks doing research, and I have really exciting results that I'm going to be sharing. So stay tuned, because that's a bit of what you're going to be hearing. And then, of course, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Augustin Fu, who is our Chief Marketing Science Officer, somewhat new to the ARF, but not as someone who has been a speaker, a member, and a devotee, but as one of our key thought leaders. Dr. Fu received his PhD from MIT when he was 23 years old, so no stranger to data and research, and he really thinks of himself as having research in the veins. But more important than that, I think of him as being a serial entrepreneur, and what better person to have at the ARF right now when things are so disruptive and we have so much change, to have someone that's a disruptor and a curator of new thought leadership in the whole area and the intersection of digital marketing and technology. As we know from the work that we're doing with Marketing 2020, they're really important platforms. Consumer centricity, data-driven decision-making, and making sure that we bring data to decision-making, that we make sense of it all, and we bring insights, and we represent the voice of the consumer at the decision table. But in addition to that, that we experiment and we take risks. So I'm going to close and turn it over to Dr. Fu by encouraging and invoking each of you on the webcast, and those of you that will be able to see this in the future on a recording, to go out and find somebody, find a company, find Spotify, find find Foursquare, find Dr. Fu, and any number of our other member companies and the speakers that we like to bring forward and the leaders that we like to evangelize, and experiment with them. Just say, hey, let's create something together. Work with David Poltrack and CBS. We have 400 member companies. We all need to get together, and the faster we can get together and move forward with quick experimentation, take some risks, the faster we're going to be able to keep our seat at the table and grow brands and build the economy. So thank you so very much for joining us, and Dr. Fu.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, those on the East Coast. We'd love to welcome you to the ARF at CES. So as we kick off 2016, what better way than to come to the Consumer Electronics Show and look at all the cutting-edge technology and innovation that's taking place. And today we're going to really kick off the entire week by focusing on the intersection between consumer technologies and advertising. So as you can all imagine, as more and more consumers have computers, laptops, tablets, and all their kids have tablets, that's really fundamentally changing the way they consume content and the way they interact with each other. So today on this webcast, we're really going to just start exploring that topic right away. Right? We know that advertising is being changed fundamentally, but what does that really mean? So we'll start off with David Poltrack's presentation on a day in the life of today's consumer. It's probably very different, right? We have a sense of how it's different, but he'll show us some hot off the presses research on how it's different. And then we'll talk about how, as people move around in the physical world, right, with their Foursquare app turned on, how we can actually leverage some of those behaviors and to better understand the consumer and therefore better tailor our marketing to them. And finally, as people have access, constant and instant access to this kind of information, their mentality is also changing, right? So they think of everything as kind of on demand, right? So think of what's happened in music. So they no longer have to buy the CD and have it physically in one place. They can access their music at any time, streamed to them, right? So all of these things are just concrete examples of how consumer technologies have really changed advertising. And we're going to show you some of those advances and how we can take advantage of the technology, right? It's presenting challenges to the advertising industry, but those technologies are also presenting opportunities to allow us to make advertising better. So let me now turn it over to David to kick off with the first presentation, Day in the Life of Today's Media Consumer.
Happy New Year, everyone. So what I'm going to do today in a very brief 15 minutes, I'm going to summarize what we have been doing for the last couple of weeks here at Television City. By the way, Gail, in November we actually celebrated our 1 millionth respondent at Television City. So what every year we gather in Las Vegas, right after Christmas, going into New Year's and coming up to CES, and we talk to people about their media consumption habits, how those habits have changed over time, and what specifically, what new things are interesting them. And it's an ideal time to get people to respond because with all the Christmas giving and gifts and everything, their media is on their minds. And of course, it leads us right up to CES when our management comes in. We can give them the most up-to-date position on where the consumer stands. So that's what I'm going to give you a bit of summary today. It's called The Day in the Life of Today's Media Consumer. And so it's a unique type of research that we do. It's a combination of a survey, a traditional survey, but also what we call interactive focus groups. We have completed so far 16. We will end up with 18. We'll do 2 more today. 16 focus groups we target people we concentrate on people under 55 because believe me, this is the place to get millennials. If you want to interview millennials, this is the place to get them. So our sample right now is 52% of the people are 18 to 34 years of age, 40% 35 to 54, and 8% 55 plus. We do not we do not look at dependent young adults. We only look at young adults that are out and on their own, because that's the dynamics of the consumer market we're trying to capture. We will actually, 475 people will take the survey, of which 188 will participate in the focus groups. We actually integrate couples and singles together in the focus group, so it represents 158 households. That's because we want to capture word of mouth and the dynamics, how people talk about media, and so we want the couples together, and it works really well for us. It's an upscale, selective audience. These people have to have digital broadband connections. They have to be active on the internet. So the median income this year is $98,000. 61% of them are college graduates, and the beauty of Las Vegas, that among that 188 people, we will have representatives of 35 different states, over 45 states so far for the full sample. The other beautiful thing about this is we do this every year, and it is very consistent. If you look at last year, 95,000 income, 61% college graduate, 33 states represented, very consistent from year to year. Some of you are familiar with our media segmentation that we did with Nielsen and Cambridge Group back in 2014. That segmentation divides the nation into 7 different segments. This is how the population looks across the country. We are focusing on media trendsetters, program passionates, and engaged streamers as the most important segments. So the 18 to 34-year-olds obviously are much more likely to be in the media trendsetter, program passionate, and particularly in the engaged streamer segment. Right now, as it stands, this is what our focus groups look like. We have representations of all 7 segments. That's the beauty of this. We get everybody. So we have all 7 segments are represented, and we have an overrepresentation of media trendsetters, program passionates, and engaged streamers. Now, the issue here is that if you look at engaged streamers, you say, well, I think maybe you have too much engaged streamers. But this study was done in 2014, and it was a repetition of a study we did in 2011. From 2011 to 2014, that's where we saw the smaller streamer category bifurcate into engaged streamers and digital selectives and double in size. So from 2011 to 2014, engaged streamers emerged as a segment and doubled in size. So probably our overrepresentation is not really an overrepresentation. It's a sign that more and more people are joining the category, the segment called engaged streamers. A lot of people talk about the future, what's coming. One of the messages that we have and we've been presenting recently is the future is now. The fact is that there are no real breakthrough technologies on the forefront. They're all with us. The question is, how are people using them, and how is it changing their lives? The broadband, 79% of the people now have broadband. 65% own smartphones. 42% own tablets. People have all the latest technology. Every one of these devices, you can see, is reaching a significant percentage of the population today. People have all of these things. So one of the things we started last year is we brought people back to 2009, and we said, in 2009, when the digital conversion took place, since then, how much has your media consumption pattern changed? 85% of them said it changed a great deal. Another 8% said significantly. So almost everybody acknowledges that their media consumption pattern has changed, with most of them saying it's changed a great deal since 2009. The interesting part of this, though, is the second question we ask, which is, what year since 2009 did the greatest change take place? And here are the answers that we got over the last 2 years. You can see that the concentration is in the early years. Most people say 2010, 2011, 2012, notices a change from year to year. From 2014 to 2015, the responses moved a little bit back to 2012. If you actually watch the dynamics, I think people just have a harder time remembering back. You're at a year and they get a little more confused. But the key element here is there isn't really much going on in 2014 to 2015. And that's because every one of these devices was available in 2010. So the fact is that people are settling in, and what we have now is we now are in a position, and it really came forward to us today, that we're in a position where we actually now can see how people are changing. So you just look from CBS's point of view, from 2003 to 2014, the average audience for CBS programming went up, actually, from an average of 12.1 million to 12.3 million. But in 2003, 100% of it was live. In 2014, 39% was now nonlinear. And we project that by 2020, 50% of our audience will be nonlinear, only 50% of it will be live, and of course, we project we will have a bigger audience. Surprise, surprise. To look at it from the point of view of just one series, here's a series that we introduced this year. This is the new series Discovery Process. So Limitless, the live audience is 8.6 million viewers. A nice, solid audience, but that's only the beginning of the story. By the time the week is over and you add in DVR, VOD, and online streaming, that audience has built to 16 million, from 9.8 to 16 million. 18 to 49, the increase is even greater. The audience increases 126% from the live audience when you add in all of the nonlinear elements. The other aspect of this is the whole discovery process is changing. Here are the week-to-week numbers for this show, and you can see every week we're adding more and more new viewers you never saw before. So in week 7 of this season, 2.2 million people watched this show for the first time, and the total cumulative audience was already up to 38 million. So that is the opportunity presented by the new nonlinear multi-platform world we live in today. And as a result, as I said, our audience is actually, in the last 10 years, our average program is delivering more viewers today. So I'm going to give you just some bullet points that have particular relevance to what's going on in CES. So the first thing is, there isn't that much change going on. If you look this year to last year, DVR audiences are only up 1%. VOD is actually down a little bit. And online streaming, which is has been growing at 20, 30, 40%, is only up about 10%. People are beginning to settle into a new pattern.
Which of the following kinds of ways do you tend to watch TV programs
just a brief
on a Thursday
example, and they'll give you a demonstration.
So if you're doing a mix of things, then mark more than one. If you're doing none of them, mark none. Mark however it applies to you. How many of you guys feel like you're watching some form of live TV on a Thursday? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay? How about DVR playback? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? How about video on demand? 1, 2, 3. How about streaming? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And DVDs, Blu-ray discs? 1, and then none of these. Jen, okay. Those of you that said streaming, I had 7 of you. If you're using the internet for streaming, what sources are you using? All right, how many of you guys have Netflix? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How about Amazon? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How about Hulu or Hulu Plus? 1, 2. Looks like Juan has a lot of those. How about using YouTube? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, going to broadcast sites. Anybody doing that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, how about going to cable sites? Nobody. How about HBO Go? 1, 2, 3. And another one that's not listed. Anybody have something else they use that's not listed?
Showtime.
Showtime, okay.
And I believe Stars as well.
Yes.
Okay, and stars. Do you use any of the following devices in the evening while you also watch TV at the same time? And Jane, you can answer this too, it's just whatever time you got home. So are you using anything at the same time while watching TV? Anybody say you also are using a desktop computer? No, how about a laptop? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How about a computer tablet? 1, 2, 3. Okay. How many of you have your smartphones out using those while you watch TV? Everybody but one. Jose, you put everything away. Okay, it's making sure.
So you can, I think that's a demonstration as to just how much things have changed and how dynamic the environment is. And of course, the dialogue that we get back and forth when we actually then delve into what's going on that, and we do, each group does a separate night, and we get into the individual activities. It's very enlightening. I've only got a couple of minutes left, or so, a minute and a half. So let me just quickly hit on some of the themes that are going to be big here at, some of the things you're going to be hearing at TV, and what we learned about it. Okay, smart TVs. 43% of the people have a smart TV. 31% use a smart TV every day. Not met. Now, a lot of people don't even know how their smart TV works. Only 40% say their next TV will be a smart TV. That means that the people who have smart TVs now are saying their next TV will not be. The bottom line is people are very disappointed with smart TVs. They don't think they're very smart, and they think Roku boxes and Apple TVs and all these things are much better than smart TVs, and they never would give up their Apple TV or Roku box for a smart TV. So you're going to see a lot of stuff from smart TV manufacturers. They've got their work cut out for them. Okay, I'm going to skip this section because we don't have enough time for it, and it's where do you go to watch programs online? Here are you can see Netflix, YouTube, Hulu, Amazon. This is a new distribution. These people are going to watch their shows on these devices. This is part of the. Yeah, and when you look at the 18 to 34-year-olds, significantly greater numbers for them, and it's growing. The good news from our point of view is, no, they are not watching House of Cards. No, they are not watching the new original content. They are watching our programs. That's what Hulu is competing with VOD for our regular shows. We have to take that into consideration. Another big thing you're going to see here today is virtual reality. Virtual reality is, people are excited about virtual reality. You only see about 15% of the people saying that very likely, definitely they're going to buy it. But we demonstrated and we tested the $99 Samsung Gear that worked with smartphones. People were very excited about the experience. Virtual reality is here to stay. People are going to buy this. They are going to participate with it. The question is how much content can be produced and what the economics of producing that content. Finally, second screen applications. Things that connect the telephone, connect your smartphone, which as we saw everybody has on while they watch television, to television. That's another growing phenomenon. A company called Mobi, we tested their technology here, and here the numbers were pretty dramatic. 48% of the people say they definitely will download the app and use the new Mobi device, which essentially allows you to get coupons and get offers and take them right off the television screen onto your phone and into a Google Wallet. So those are three things. Look for virtual reality, look for these second screen appliances. That's what's going to be news here. So, and with that, I'm out of time. And I will now turn it back over to Dr. Booth.
Thank you. All right, that was great. We saw a preview of a variety of different bleeding edge technologies, including the Gear VR. And now we're going to talk about something that's already mainstream. So just like David was saying, some of the transition has actually already happened, right? Everybody has a mobile device, and some of them have 2 or 3. And these are things that they keep, with them 24/7, literally with them in bed, on the nightstand. So it presents, some challenges, obviously, to traditional thinking about media, but it also presents some opportunities. And here to talk about those opportunities is Chris Rory, Director of Research and Ad Effectiveness at Foursquare. He's going to talk about offline measurement at the speed of digital. So Chris, come on up.
Awesome, thanks. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to share a glimpse at a new product we've been working on. It's something we're really excited about. We're going to be launching it in a matter of weeks. We're already beta testing it with a number of partners. Basically, this is a product that is, we think, going to revolutionize the way that marketers optimize their cross-channel campaigns, cross-media, channel, partner, creative. It's a very exciting thing. It's basically going to reveal kind of a level of statistical accuracy that's unprecedented in the industry. And it's going to do it all in near real time, which is why this is called offline measurement at the speed of digital. So before we get into the product, I want to share a little bit about Foursquare. So many are already familiar. We're 2 consumer applications, Foursquare and Swarm. We're also a major web destination. We get a ton of traffic to Foursquare.com. And we have used these data sources basically to build some best-in-class location technologies. So this mountain of first-party data we have, 55 million monthly active users. Over the past 6 years, we've had over 8 billion explicit check-ins that have revealed to us 80 million plus crowdsourced places. This mountain of first-party data is already being used by 90,000 app developers, including Twitter, Waze by Google, Pinterest, Yahoo. So we've been doing a lot of thinking now about how to apply this data to derive business insights. Some examples of this you might have seen recently were when we predicted sort of out there, an out there prediction that was significantly higher than Wall Street's prediction for Apple's iPhone, Apple's iPhone sales for the first week of Q3 2015. Wall Street was expecting 12 to 13 million. We were expecting 13 to 15 million, and it turns out we were right on the nose. So it's definitely very strong data. It's being used by hedge funds. It's being used by Fortune 500 forecasting departments. Another example of these type of insights that we can get are McDonald's versus Taco Bell. We did a quick analysis to see what the introduction of McDonald's breakfasts all day was versus the new breakfast menu rollout at Taco Bell. This got a lot of coverage on CNBC. So these type of insights are really, really interesting to us. What I'm going to present today is a new product for marketers. So it's called Attribution, powered by Foursquare. We'll get into exactly what it is. Probably many of you see where this is going right now. But there's been this race to the real world, both from a targeting perspective, where we are trying to reach the right person at the right time in the physical world. Also from a attribution perspective, trying to attribute conversions back to advertising. So over the past decade, there's been some interesting products in the space that connect advertising to the point of sale. These have become relied upon as the best way probably that's out there to connect online and offline media with purchase. The only issue with these type of products are that they're quite small scale. So, they're getting a lot of data from either credit cards or loyalty cards. It's always a bit of a question how representative the audience is. Also, The real kicker is it takes a long time to get the reports back. We're talking months after a campaign ends. And how can you really optimize and apply those learnings when you're getting it several months after? This has led to a really new area, which many people are not familiar with, but it's quickly growing, and that's basically visit-based attribution. So with apps like Foursquare, we can actually get a really good sense of how smartphones are moving throughout the world. Audience scale of millions, and we're collecting it in real time. So there are some other products in the space, and when we look at the landscape, we kind of look at it on sort of an MBA 101 chart, scale versus accuracy. And essentially, we see a lot of vendors that are using third-party ad exchange data. They're applying data science and algorithms to it, but it's ultimately data that anybody has access to. And it's, from a statistics point of view, it's really like chasing sample. It's like, let's create the biggest samples possible, and all of the inaccuracies will just smooth out, and it'll be fine. It's not really the case. So it's really, really large scale, but it's not very accurate data, both in terms of understanding where people are and what places they're going to. The other type of product out there right now is deterministic data, and it's more accurate. This is vendors who build panels basically that are tracking people, throughout the day, seeing where they go, getting a number of pings. It's better data, it's more accurate. The only difficulty is it's really tough to build scale. So it's hard to build, more than 100,000 size panel. It's always incentivized. So it's very, very difficult. We were looking at this landscape, and we think we have a chance to build a very breakthrough product here, which is what we've been working on the past 2 quarters. So this is attribution powered by Foursquare. Let's go into our accuracy and scale, and we can see how it's really done. So, when we look at place identification for location service providers, they're either looking at a radius that's about 1 mile wide, they're looking at tiles that are the size of a football field, or they're drawing using a satellite image, drawing around big box stores and things like that. It's not very precise. We do something completely different. It's called place shapes. So using all of the data that we've sort of, amassed, let's see, there's an animation here. It might be too slow. I'm going to describe it otherwise. So we have all of this explicit check-in data. That's basically a data set that's exceptionally hard to recreate. You would need to get people to raise their hand 8 billion times and say, I'm at this location and not that location. What we can get from that is basically a map of the world that, think of a topographical map that basically shows where check-ins are, and with a different level of confidence, different rings around it. So we can see, with 95% confidence, somebody's at the Mall of America, and not just the Mall of America, but the J. Crew in the southwest corner versus the Starbucks that's two doors down. We can also measure verticality, so we can see Wi-Fi signal strength. Even if you're not connected to the Wi-Fi signal, we can see what the strength are of the signals around you, so we can make a quite accurate guess about what floor of a building you're on. So there's a number of different ways that we have brought these location technologies to bear to really understand with a high level of accuracy that somebody's going to one area and not another area. We have these place shapes for 87 million places globally, and it's kept fresh by our API and a number of other things. So we know about the accuracy of the location data. Why does scale matter? Scale is really, really important when it comes to building out representative research, because it lets us get to much faster statistical significance, so we can hit it faster, we can make decisions off that faster, and most importantly, we can drill down way below the campaign level and go down to the partner, the creative, the audience segment level to understand abilities to optimize and what's the incremental lift and what's the true ad effectiveness by a creative or partner level, not just a campaign level. And the key thing too with scale is that it gives us really real-time data. I mean, we're collecting this data in real time. We're doing sort of beta tests right now. We're passing data on a daily basis, and optimization decisions are being made on a weekly basis. So how do we deliver the scale? It's a great question. Basically, we have a subset of our US user base that we're applying to the attribution product that's 1.3 million people. We're basically always seeing the different places they go. We get about 10 pings a day, I think, from this user base. And the truth is it could be a lot bigger than this. We're focused on active users, some of our most active ones. We're also focused on census representativeness. So we're looking at, an equal map across geo, age, and gender. And we think it's about 2 times bigger than the nearest kind of deterministic vendor in this space. So very, very exciting data set we have to work with. I probably don't need to go into this too much for this audience, but in terms of measuring incremental lift, just a quick overview, how are we collecting this? It's quite simple, actually. We're embedding our pixel in all the creatives running across mobile and web campaigns. We're looking at, maybe there's 3 creative units, 5 partners. We're matching this audience that's exposed back to our user base. We're then segmenting the exposed group by what creative they saw, whether they clicked, the different partner that they saw it on, and then we're comparing it to a control. So our engineering team has done some phenomenal work around building a weighted control group that's perfectly representative of the exposed across geo, age, and gender. That's another thing that the massive scale allows for, because we can actually say that, okay, we had a female 18 to 34 in Michigan that was exposed to the ad here. We can go and see exactly what another female 18 to 34 in Michigan did in terms of visit rate and compare the incremental. So that's the key thing there. We're looking at these visit rates for control and exposed, getting to a truly accurate lift, which gets us to true incremental visits, and also marketing ROI if we apply business assumptions like revenue per visit and things like that. Allows for very powerful optimization. This is basically something that's hot off the press. We just have been running a number of these test campaigns, and essentially just the power of this is that we can establish incremental lift across channels, partners, creative, in real time. So we can actually see, this is for a Fortune 100 retailer, what was the actual exposed lift on a daily basis. As you make changes to the campaign, you'll see it reflected in here. And we can do it across all those parameters. So I'm from the agency world. I've never seen anything else like this. It's really, really exciting. And then overall, that is basically the overall product. In terms of working together, we have a very simple process. We're embedding creative tags. We're currently tracking across mobile and desktop. And then there's a small 10 million impression minimum. That's actually a benefit because we can hit statistical significance on only that many impressions. So if there's any questions or any interest, and we expect there will be, please don't hesitate to reach out. See Rory at foursquare.com. And yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Chris. That was great. A couple of things that really hit me is the fact that we actually see real-time attribution. So kind of tying the offline world with the online world via the mobile device. Right? So now we can actually see things happening. So now when we run online media campaigns and we make tweaks, we can actually see the results ripple through to lift in sales in offline physical stores. And obviously, you remember the slide about even Wall Street analysts can use this to predict iPhone sales. So these are really great examples, very concrete examples of how we can leverage this new technology to do something we've never been able to do before. So now let's move on to Spotify, and we're going to talk about how consumers have changed the way they think about content ownership or access to information. And with us, we have Jeff Rossi, Global Director of Business Marketing at Spotify, to tell us more.
Thanks.
Hey, everyone. So what I want to spend some time talking about is what Spotify's learned. Not so much Spotify, but really understanding that we've been in market for 10 years globally. And people spend so much time connected with us that we've learned a lot in the 25 billion hours that people have been listening. So that's really what I wanted to kind of talk about, was this idea of what happens when you're connected, and the difference and what you're able to learn and glean from that connectivity. So one thing we've learned is that if you're not on demand, you're old. And what do I mean by that? It's kind of funny to do this over a webcast and not hear all my jokes sort of land. So thank you for that. Since we're to Vegas, I'm gonna do a little bit of bragging. I'm gonna show you a picture of my vacation home and my ride in my home theater. But in actuality, I don't own any of these. And that's kind of what we're talking about. Is I have access to a home, I have access to a car, I have access to all this media, but I own none of it. And that's really what's become pervasive in how people consume everything. If you look at how long it takes right now for people for the average age of a home sale, of a car sale, it's getting older and older because people have access to this. And the same is happening in media. That people don't have to own their media, they can stream it through Netflix, through Amazon, through Spotify. And as you can see in the music industry, we right now are at an inflection point that is going to have streaming surpass all other ways of music distribution. And you can see in 2020, which seems to be the watermark for all wonderful things in media and today, you can see here that in 2020 it's going to be a tremendously dominant way of media consumption. So this idea of streaming, it should be really exciting. It's not just about getting more access, but for marketers, it becomes about understanding more. If I were to take a DVD of one of the CBS shows, or if I were to take a CD or an MP3 and go away, I don't know what episodes are watched. I don't know when it's watched. I don't know what music they're listening to, what tracks, where, when. And that's really what we can start to think about, is when I'm connected, I know what device you're on. I know who you are. I know everything that really starts to happen when you consume. And we can start to look and make a deep understanding of what happens when people are listening or streaming. And for us, what really is interesting is that we know that there's a direct correlation between actual human behaviors and music. And we can actually see it on a timeline, that we can see that songs like Charlotte by Huey Mack increased when the royal baby Charlotte was born. We can see that We Are the Champion by Queen spiked when Germany won the World Cup. We can see that Macklemore's Same Love spiked when there was the announcement of same-sex marriage. So we can, and you guys who may have seen this absolutely terrible interception thrown by Russell Wilson to give the Patriots the Super Bowl, what we actually saw was this, that during the halftime show, the day of the Super Bowl, Katy Perry, who was our most streamed artist, almost doubled the amount of streams on our platform. And Missy Elliott, who hadn't had a new album out in a while, saw an almost 7x lift the day after the Super Bowl. Because there's an action that happens, there's a direct correlation that you can start to see between a behavior and what happens in the real world. Again, that race to the real world that we were talking about. So with that becomes really interesting data and insights that we can provide to content providers, to marketers, to consumers. And so I always sort of reference the movie Moneyball. Moneyball is a movie that's about Billy Beane, the Oakland A's GM, who took data to find inefficiencies in the marketplace to compete with the Red Sox and the Yankees, who had bigger budgets. So what he did is, instead of being more expensive, he was a lot smarter. And that's what we provide to the record labels, is we actually help them moneyball the industry. That we actually can go out to artists like Hunter Hayes and tell his management team that as they're planning their new tour for his EP 21, we can say what cities are the most fervent Hunter Hayes fan that he can actually schedule his tour, which he did. 21 cities for his EP 21. We worked with Justin Bieber's management to give him his first #1 single. So we start to really help the industry moneyball what is historically not a data-driven industry. So to provide them real data and real-time context is important, and we want to begin to moneyball the marketing industry. So that's really where we are. So it really needs to start with a deep understanding of what's happening, but it also has to start with the role of ubiquity and connectivity. So you need to be connected everywhere before we can start to segment, and that's really what we're talking about. So we conducted a study with ComScore, a global study with 500 respondents, asking them a series of questions, including, where do you listen to music? And we can see here, not surprisingly, the dominant use case is in-car, listening to the radio, CDs, plugging in my MP3. What streamers, as opposed to non-streamers, listen to, and this was asked of non-streamers, where do they listen? And the dominant use case is the car. Streamers look completely different. You don't lose the car, but you add all these other use cases. That they're at work, they're exercising, 23% are shopping while listening to music. So suddenly this idea of being connected offers a marketer new and unique places to deliver a dialogue. So that creates a really interesting set of both that we understand more people in more places. And then we even understand interesting things because of who we are as Spotify, that people who name their playlists as a declared action become another really interesting data point. So here, we see that there's 500,000 streams every day of people who listen to showering playlists, which I always find interesting. And then you can actually see the times of day that they listen, the age groups, and really start to understand this, that people are listening to different types of music in the shower. That provides a CPG marketer, for example, really interesting data. Or another data set that we have was a partnership that we actually did with Dunkin' Donuts. So Dunkin' Donuts actually came to us and asked for some sort of deep insight and understanding. We actually looked back at our data and we saw that there were 500,000 coffee-related playlists every day that people listened to. And there was, from Monday to Friday, from 2 to 4, a significant spike of people turning to coffee playlists. And we see that during that coffee break, that pick-me-up that you need, people would put on their coffee playlist, go grab a cup of coffee. Dunkin' did not see a correlating spike of in-store activity. So they said they're turning for coffee, but they're not turning to Dunkin'. So what they actually did is they said that they were planning a sampling campaign. So we worked with them to design this activation to be dedicated to this data. So from Monday to Friday, from 2 to 4, in 5 cities, New York, LA, Chicago, Boston, and Philadelphia, we actually scheduled programming of artists that our data told us were relevant in each of these cities. Then we did a sampling campaign, we did a couponing campaign, and it drove foot traffic into store. And while from the outside it seems like a party and free coffee, iced coffee, and bands, and it sounds like great fun, it's actually steeped in a foundation of deep, deep data that really told us this is both the right time and the right content to deliver to these consumers. So that's really what we need to talk about, is how does data and an understanding of context become pervasive through everything that we do as marketers? So, what we say is that, brands who tap into these moments are going to be winners. And that, I feel like it's a big CES type thing. We're leading the future. We're going to be winners. What does that mean? I feel like everyone likes, to say these big, bold statements. But it means changing how we think about accessing content. We still get a lot of people that call us up all the time and say, I'm trying to reach an older male audience, so I want to target classic rock, or I want to reach a younger female, so give me pop, or I have an African-American target, so I want to reach hip-hop. But that's not how people listen. If I could tell you that they're listening to our new Beatles catalog while on a road trip mixtape, or Rihanna during a workout playlist, the content is important, but the context is way more important. Because really, if you start to think about it, I listen to all 3 of these genres. People don't silo themselves by genre, and in fact, that's not even how artists are recording anymore. That all 3 of these artists are putting out tracks together. How do you categorize this? It's irrelevant. What you need to start to think about is what is the mindset of the consumer at the point that they're consuming that content. And if you start to look, we actually have looked at all of the top playlists on Spotify, and you've seen that there's been a significant migration over the past few years, that the largest playlists on Spotify are not by use state. Are not by genre, they're by use state. People are declaring what they're doing when they're listening. I don't create a playlist and say, this is my pop music or EDM or country music playlist. They go, this is my workout playlist. This is my, graduation party playlist. This is my, running playlist. They do it by declared action, and human behavior really starts to come through by declared actions. So marketers can take advantage of that and start to really see what is the content, who is the user, and in what context are they consuming this content. And that's really what streaming content providers offer marketers, is that ability to give you that context. And so we need to really start looking and saying, how can we take advantage of this? And I think that there's been tremendous innovation in things like programmatic and targeting solutions, but it only takes you so far. And that, we start to think about cookies as being a great proxy, but at the end of the day, a cookie's not a person. If I am working out in the morning, and probably not working out in the morning, especially not in Las Vegas. But so if I were working out in the morning, in theory, or having a beer at night, which I definitely will have in Las Vegas, I am the same cookie, but you can't communicate to me the same message. There's context that needs to happen, that if I try and have that alcohol message while I'm on that treadmill, it's gonna ring untrue, even if that is the right cookie. So context is something that really needs to play an important role in the marketing mix. And that's really, when you start streaming, you can understand that context. So the last question really is, do people care? Do people who are streaming, do they care? Or are they streaming because they want to get away from advertising? They want to get away from brands? So again, we fielded this global ComScore research study and asked this question of streamers, of Spotify streamers, and of streamers of other music services that are not Spotify. And the construct was these 3. And ask them, how do you feel about brands? Not how do you feel about advertising, not how do you feel about this banner ad that we just showed you. It was, how do you feel about brands? Ask them questions. Is this a brand you would tell your friends about? Is this a brand you'd pay more money for? And And across the board, streamers want to hear from brands. Spotify users, because we're a lean-forward platform, are even more engaged. But by and large, every streaming service, Spotify and our competitive set, they are real brand loyalists. They think positively about brands. They're more likely to be brand advocates. These are people that are leaning forward with their content, and they're leaning forward with their engagement of brands. And we really have an opportunity now to take advantage of this. And it's really still early days. I think there's a lot of really interesting things that we're going to be talking about here at CES this year. I think this is a big, big year for Spotify. We're making an investment in our ads business, and you're going to see it here. So if anyone comes by the C space to see our space, please do. But what we really need to start thinking about is how can we be important to our consumers? How can we start to think that consumers are just inundated with content, that they're inundated with all these solutions? An interesting stat that just came across the other day was that only 5 apps get used daily, while an average person has 20 to 30 apps on their smartphone. Only 1 to 5 get used daily. And if you think about it, Spotify is one of them. I mean, we see that people open us up, 80% of our users actually open us up multiple times in a week. That means that you're opening your email, you're opening your social media, your messaging apps, and listening to music. And so that really becomes really important for marketers. How do it become part of your daily life? How do you start communicating? And what data does that unlock? And what segmentation and insight can you derive from that? Because we spend 2 hours a day with our consumer, and we can provide context and data that informs that context that should hopefully inform what you do with us would be nice, but across everything that you do. So really that's what it is about connecting with the consumer, understanding context, and really just being a part of their life. So, and what we're really excited about is that there's just so much further to go. So thank you so much, and please email if you have any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. That was great. So let me do a quick recap of what we've seen. I feel very inspired. Very inspired by the cool technology, but also really the cool opportunities that we've never had before. So David started us off with talking about how people's consumption patterns have changed, and really the key realization that I came away with is that the change has already happened. Right? That started back in 2010, 2011. They're kind of just settling into their pattern now. Right? It's not like we're seeing massive disruptive change now. It's already happened. But what is this new pattern of media consumption? What is this new pattern of use of technology? And how can we take advantage of that? And if you remember from that focus group video, you saw that when the moderator asked, how many of you use a smartphone while watching TV? It was all of them, right? So everyone raised their hand. That's how they do it. That's how they consume media. That's how they use their different devices at all times of day. And that led beautifully into the Foursquare presentation, where these are indeed devices that they have with them. And because they have it with them 24/7 while they're walking around, while they're going shopping, we can actually layer on new insights and new data that, again, we never had before. So with Foursquare, we can actually see where they are, not just the city block or where you draw a rectangle around an area of a map. We can see what floor they're on, right, or what cosmetics counter they're at within a department store. So with that kind of accuracy, again, it opens up brand new opportunities that we never had before, and new insights about how people, really tie their offline behavior with perhaps online media or media that they see in digital channels. And then finally, with Spotify, we heard about how people really take the context, right? It's either working out or going to get coffee. It's less about the music itself, right? Content is important, but like you said, context is even more important, right? It really depends. They're going to curate their own playlist. They're going to learn from other people, and those create new opportunities for us to not only reach audiences, right, in different contexts with the right message at the right time, but also creates audience extensions, like David was saying, right? It's not that nonlinear TV or streaming is destroying TV. It's actually enhancing it. It's building an audience that we never had before. And they're adding to the base of TV watchers, because now they have different ways of consuming media at different times on different devices. So what a great way to kick off CES, where we're now really at the intersection between cutting-edge consumer technologies and how it impacts advertising. So we really have to now, the rest of this week, address the question how advertising works in this new environment. So we encourage you to follow us on YouTube. You see our Twitter hashtag, it's ARF CES 16. So we'll be using that throughout this week as Gail does more interviews with advertising thought leaders, and really look into the future through their perspective, through their lens, and see how consumer technologies are truly changing how advertising works. So thank you very much for everyone. Thank you to all our speakers. Let's have one final round of applause.